Roll call members.
Chairman Gary Rudd.
Here.
Joe Prince.
Here.
Kathy Waltz.
Here.
Tony Grass.
Here.
Jeff Idman.
Here.
Tom Couch. Mayor Rimminger.
Here.
Carl Oakenfuss.
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Approval of the agenda. On the agenda.
Can I?
Oh, go ahead.
Commission for just a sec. The mayor has the option of being a member of this commission and not being a voting member of this commission, and I'm going to opt out just because of the board of aldermen, along with the mayor, hears and approves the recommendations from this commission. So I'm going to opt out of being on a voting member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So we will, and I think we have one vacancy anyway, and we will get that person appointed. So I'm no longer a voting member.
Okay.
Sit in the crowd.
Just stay where you are. You're the mayor. You can sit where you are.
It's a lot nicer.
Going to the cheap
Off camera.
Yeah.
On the agenda, we have a request submitted by Citizens Electric Corporation to rezone a tract of land located at 10932 Industrial Drive from a current R1 single-family residential zone to an I1 light industrial zone.
Before considering that, you need to go back to approving the agenda.
That's what I was reading the agenda to approve.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were introducing the case.
No. And also review and recommendation for proposed sign ordinance. Have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of meeting minutes from March 5th, 2012.
Move approval.
Have a motion?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Citizens input, Ron, I take it you're here with Citizens Electric, correct?
Yes.
Okay, new business, we'll go right into it. A request submitted by Citizens Electric Corporation to rezone a tract of land located at 10932 Industrial Drive from the current R1 single-family residential zone to an I1 light industrial zone. Brenda, that was just brought in as a R1 when it was annexed, correct?
That's correct.
Which is standard procedure.
Yes. Normally, it would have been rezoned shortly thereafter, and that was not done. It was over, I believe it was just an oversight.
Any problems anywhere?
MFA phoned me, I don't remember if it was Friday or this morning, kind of blends all together, asking about the rezoning and background on it. They were not aware that it was not rezoned.
So you educated them on the
Yes,
process,
and-
and they were happy with that?
Yes, and they're considering they being rezoned as well. And I told them that the city was looking into the situation as well, so.
And that's the only problem we've had, and that really wasn't a problem.
No, that's not an issue. I had another gentleman come in this morning and ask about it. He was a little confused as to the location, and once he realized where the location was, he was all right with that, so.
I'll move approval.
I'll second it.
Get motion in a second, roll call.
Any discussion?
Any discussion, Ron? Do you want any input, anything, or
Really here, if there's any questions, you really don't have
any questions for Ron, for Brenda?
Ron, could you explain exactly what you're gonna do out there?
We'll continue to do exactly what we've been doing. It's, you know, we sort of,
You're gonna put up a building, is that right?
on On this location?
Yeah.
No.
You just want to change
The zoning?
from R1 to a commercial, or,
That's right. That's
Industrial.
right.
that's all you're asking?
That's all we're asking.
All right.
Any other discussion? Go for the vote, Brenda?
Commissioner Prince?
Yes.
Commissioner Waltz?
Yes.
Commissioner Grass?
Yes.
Commissioner Eidman?
Yes.
Alderman Obenfuss?
Yes.
Chairman Roth?
Yes.
That's 6 yeses, 0 noes.
Motion carries. We will move on to old business. Ron, you're more than welcome to leave if you'd like. You don't have to stay in.
Okay. Well, I certainly appreciate that. If there's any questions, just let me know.
Goes to the board. When?
On
2
the
weeks.
26th,
It'll go to the Board of Aldermen on the 26th.
26th
I
of this
believe
month?
so. I will verify that with you tomorrow, or, I'm sorry, Wednesday.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Sarah?
Review and recommendation of proposed sign ordinance.
After our last meeting on this issue, we agreed that Brenda and I would review the sign ordinance, identify areas of it that we thought had problems, with the most significant of which was the electronic sign. So we did that, she and I did that, we went over it paragraph by paragraph, we eliminated some things that were in the prior version that we just didn't seem to apply to St. Genevieve in any meaningful way. And we did research on the electric sign ordinance to find out kind of what the industry standard was and how it fits into the areas where this ordinance allows electronic signs. You'll notice that one of the things it does is limits the location of them to the commercial areas and attempts to minimize the negative impact such a sign would have even when those areas are in proximity to a residential area, by making sure the sign is sufficiently far away from any residence so there's no light pollution based on the illumination standards that are established in the ordinance. And it does not allow flashing signs, it does not allow animated signs, it does not allow rolling messages, because those are the things that research has proven are a distraction to drivers and can cause accidents. It allows changing sign information. It requires that it be in 8-second increments in terms of the display. That's the most frequent change, with at least a 1-second delay. It establishes the illumination by a measurement that I had heretofore been unfamiliar with. I used to think in terms of candle power. The term they now use is NITS, N-I-T-S. I have no idea what it stands for. But the 10,000 nits seem to be at the maximum. And the other thing that I just really hadn't thought about was that they use dimmer controls, so that the 10,000 nits would be the highest level of illumination possible, and that would occur in the brightest sun. But as the sun goes down, or as you have cloudy days, these automatic dimmers will reduce the illumination to meet the ambient light conditions. So you really never have the impact of that bright illumination in the middle of the night.
That can't be overridden.
Maybe. But it's automatic. I mean, it's, you know,
Not light.
it's called for to be automatic. Can it be reverted to manual? You know, maybe. Can I take a light meter out and measure it if I get a complaint? Yeah. So, I mean, we would have, ultimately have that control by being able to measure the illumination at the appropriate times. The only other comment that I received from my consultation with the industry person was that the underwriter's laboratory is not the only laboratory that governing body that governs the electronic signs. So he had recommended that we put or other listing body in that paragraph 12 on page 9, where we call out the other listing bodies. Thanks to Brenda for her hard work in facilitating the research and answering questions and sitting down with me and going over the language. I know that at least one commission member has reviewed it and has a question with regard to one of the items, so I'm going to shut up. But we, the staff, recommend the approval of the ordinance as we have presented it.
Brenda, on the summary table, wasn't we eliminating number 5?
Yes.
Because they were going to be the appeal board for if we denied something.
Well, the Board of Adjustment, I mean, you're going to be the, you're going to be the appeal board, is that what you're
No,
saying?
they will be the
Board of
appeal board
Adjustment.
if we deny something.
Right.
So that would only be on an appeal. That a sign wouldn't have to go to them to be approved initially.
Well, in other words, they would
would
submit a
only-
request to planning and zoning.
Right.
Okay, and then, okay, I see what you're saying.
And then it would only go to the variance board for an appeal.
We were talking about this in our meeting, whether or not there should even be a variance for the sign.
No, here's what my way of thinking is that you recommend that the Board of Aldermen adopt a set of standards. If someone comes in and proposes a sign that meets the set of standards that have been adopted, no further review is necessary. The staff can review the application. If it's in conformance, you issue the building permit.
Well, would you still have,
Now, if
sorry,
If a person disagrees with the staff decision, then someone appeals it. The question is, what is the appropriate appellate body? And the statute says that the body to appeal a decision of the staff for implementation, the code official, for implementation of the zoning ordinance is the Board of Adjustment, not planning and zoning.
And you say statute, that's state statute.
State statute.
So we have to
So-
abide by that.
So once you adopt this, once you recommend it and the board adopts it, it takes you out of the sign business. This board, the board of the planning commission, and leaves it in the hands of the staff for an interpretation of the technical conformity with the ordinance. And if the applicant disagrees with the staff's interpretation of the regulation, they go to the Board of Appeals or adjustment, whichever you want to call it. We call it Board of Zoning Adjustment. Yeah. And that's the way this is set up.
Well, then my question, I have a question for you. Do we want to let flashing and animated signs stay in the table as far as if you request a variance for one and get one? Because elsewhere in the ordinance, it is not allowed. And that's on the table.
Yeah, I mean, that's, if it's not otherwise allowed in the ordinance,
So I should take that.
but then it could be granted by variance. I mean, I think that's okay.
Okay,
Yeah, you have to leave it there, so there is.
so that would have, I got it. That makes a little more sense.
If you took it out and didn't have it in the table, then there was no, they could never do it, right?
Right, which, some communities do.
Mhm.
They don't win ultimately when they're challenged. It's difficult kind of to regulate an activity out of existence in a community. But generally, the test is that there ought to be somewhere in your community where otherwise legal activities can occur. Now, you can make it very restrictive. You could say flashing signs can only go in industrial areas, and that would be okay. But to say flashing signs can go nowhere in your community would be a challenge that would be difficult to defend. But communities have done it, and I mean, you don't see flashing signs probably.
Now, the body that would permit such use would be,
Board of Adjustments.
Yeah, that's where.
because they're not really appealing an
They're appealing the
interpretation.
ordinance.
If it's not there, it's not there.
Yeah.
Well, what is the general variance language in the code?
I mean, my understanding was the Board of Adjustment until very.
I think it's the Board of Adjustment. It doesn't have to be. I mean, there's, it can be,
Would that be a special use permit, or would that be a regular?
if you handle it as a special use permit, you can send it wherever you want to send it. If you handle it as a variance, it could come back to the planning commission. It depends. For instance, you would grant variances to your subdivision regulations. The only real role of the Board of Adjustment should be to appeal decisions of the staff. So I think variances should come here.
I think we agree with that.
And then I have an opinion as to when you should grant variances, but I'll wait until we get to it. Now, I don't think a variance, I'd rather see a situation where the variance are granting someone because of a special set of circumstances, a deviation from the adopted rule, but only when a special set of circumstances exists. I don't see then the sign ordinance is being a variance. I think you'd rather have it as a special use permit. Because in cases where somebody wants to put up a flashing sign, it's going to be difficult to demonstrate that a special set of circumstances exists that should allow them to do it contrary to the adopted regulation if you anticipate wanting to allow them in a controlled environment. And that's more, I think, reasonably a special use permit, because then you can establish the conditions when it can flash, how bright the flash can be, that kind of thing.
Put it limit our review time.
Yeah, it's another, special use permits expire. Variances don't.
A variance would stay with the property, a special use permit stays with the owner,
Correct.
so that we would, yeah. That makes sense.
So what do we have to do to implement those regulations?
So on this chart, you would change the fives to special use permit by
Planning and zoning.
board?
I could put variance by Board of Adjustment or a special use permit by planning and zoning, or do you want me to be more specific?
Say it again?
I'd be more specific,
Yeah.
go just with planning and zoning.
Yeah.
Take the variance out.
So I will change that to,
Special,
give it another number. Well,
Well,
let's see.
leave, if you, I mean, I don't know why you couldn't just let the board, if
All-
this is
all
their
of your
desire.
drives would change to that, wouldn't they?
They could.
No, because this is directory, well, yeah, I guess you're right. Well, what about having a directory in a residential area? Would that be a special use permit issue?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's okay.
Okay.
I think it's less advisable to have the Board of Adjustment ruling on issues other than variances. They should be adjusting the regulation to fit the circumstances. And the Board of Zoning Adjustments decision is final. Not appealable by the Board of Aldermen. So if it becomes here, then it becomes a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen, which gives them some, in allowing things like a directory to go up in a residential area. Whereas if the Board of Adjustment said no, that person would have to sue in circuit court to get their satisfaction. Mr. Alderman, what is your preference?
That's why I have staff. I'm gonna follow your lead.
Good answer, Carl.
I think it's better policy to have those decisions coming to the planning commission for recommendation to the Board of Aldermen than having it go to a body that can't be appealed. So I would say change the 5 to special use permit. Planning and zoning commission. Thank you, Mr. Castro.
Any other corrections?
On page 6, I don't know if it's just misnumbered or are we missing a number 5?
You just, organizations, hanging events. That might have been one of the ones we were reading that we thought was inappropriate and took it out without renumbering it. Is that what happened?
That's probably what happened.
Okay.
No, I'm just hiding it from. I'll pop it in later if
It was real invisible.
Numbers.
I have one also.
Did you catch that?
Which one?
Did you catch that?
What's that?
Did you catch what we're talking about? Oh, I thought you had a question on that.
Oh.
Kathy, you have something?
Yes, on page 3, number 20, regarding interior signs are not regulated by this chapter. On page 11, number 11 is a restriction on window signs which are not regulated by this chapter, and I personally would like to see that there be no restrictions on window signs and conform with the other on page 3.
Well, the only reason you have that 40% in there is a general requirement in the building code that spaces that are occupied have a certain ability to allow natural sunlight in. If we had no restriction on the ability to have signs in your windows, you could paint your windows completely. Now, honestly, it's not a big thing for me, but that's the reason it's in there, is
Well-
because we're trying to comply with the building code's restrictions on.
I understand what you're saying, but I respectfully disagree. As a merchant with store windows, there are many reasons you would want to paper up a sale sign on your window that may or may not last forever, may or may not disintegrate. So there, and I don't think we really want to open the can of worms of regulating interior signs. I think that would be inappropriate at best, and just we would never be done at the worst. And so I would like to see this number 11 be up to the discretion of the holder of the window and eliminated.
I have no objection to that.
Anybody else?
I have no objection.
I have to do some more renumbering.
Actually, I want to do
So-
is,
I mean,
is
So
keep the
Kathy,
first
you want
sentence in.
number 11 completely wiped out?
Yes.
On page 11.
Number 11 on page 11 completely
Yeah,
wiped out, yes.
You don't need the first sentence.
The second.
Well, this is the exemptions.
So what will number 11 say?
Window signs, any signs.
Not
placed
yet
within
regulated.
Within lettering placed upon a window surface.
So from interior on would be deleted.
Why can't 12,
I guess we could just take it out.
take it out and just make holiday decorations number 12.
Make it 11.
I think I put that in there because it's in the definitions of a sign.
The window sign?
We can just take it out.
Yeah, it's number 40 on page 5, window signs.
It's done. It's gone.
Any other questions? None?
On page 15, you want to change that writing appeals to planning and zoning instead of board of adjustments?
I'm sorry, say that again,
Yeah,
please.
15.
No, the appeals are still gonna go through.
Yeah, but this is variances, not an amendment. This is- Yeah, that's what we decided. Board of Zoning Adjustments says no, shall be submitted in accordance with procedures set forth for appeal. And then you have variances. And a variance is not an appeal.
So I just changing the use to variances to the Planning and Zoning Commission?
See, the-
Variances or special use?
Change it to change it from right of appeal. You still need to have in here that they have the right to appeal the board of
Right,
zoning.
they have to have the
Board of
right.
Adjustment.
Yeah.
So I would say the appeals by the Board of Adjustment pursuant to this shall be submitted in accordance with the procedures set forth. That's, leave that paragraph,
Right.
and then create a paragraph 14 that says variances shall be presented, acted upon by the boards. The Planning and Zoning Commission. And then indicate that the criteria. Good catch.
I don't want to be a pedant here, but shouldn't it be the other way? Shouldn't the new number 13 be variances shall be acted upon by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the new 14 be what's there is the 13, so that the last thing is the right of appeal?
That's pretty pedantic.
There might be another one of those. Joe just pointed this out. Yeah. On page 14, letter C,
Page 6, number 7.
yeah. Not a question of the procedure necessarily, but page 14, letter C, again, as specified by the Board of Adjustment, maybe should be Planning and Zoning Commission.
Well, so wait a minute.
Pardon?
This is the abatement of a violation. Planning and zoning administrator is authorized to remove unlawful signs or to order the owner, under B, to remove the sign. The order shall require the sign be removed unless the owner submits an appeal to the Board of Adjustment, which is the appropriate place to appeal the planning and zoning administrator's order. Then it says, if the sign is not removed or brought into compliance as specified by a non-appealed order of the zoning administrator, or as specified by the Board of Adjustment, and they're allowing the variance with some regulations, then the city can take down the sign and charge the property owner. So I think it's right the way it is.
Is it? It seems kind of like it reads like a mouthful of rocks.
Well, you know, maybe.
I-
But I think the order is right.
You think so?
Yes.
Okay.
They have a sign that doesn't conform.
Right.
They're ordered to take it down. They appeal that order. To whom? That's the Board of Adjustment. If the Board of Adjustment agrees with the zoning administrator, then they must take it down.
Okay, I got it. I got it this time. Thank you. You got it?
No.
Yeah, me too. No. If I might, while people are still reading, I would like to thank staff for the tremendous labor that has gone into condensing this down to this little booklet here. I think it's been a yeoman's job. Thank you very much.
You get paid for it.
No one's lost. So you think the only tax that we're entitled to is a paycheck?
This must make great TV for the folks at home.
Any other corrections or notes or?
I'll make a motion to approve.
As amended.
As amended, yes.
Oh, dear God, yes.
I'll say.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So that recommendation will be considered by the Board of Aldermen at their meeting on April 12th. It is a change to the code. It requires an ordinance. So the second meeting, assuming they act on first, will be on the 26th.
Would it be possible that prior to that draft going to the Board of Aldermen, that we receive a fresh amended copy?
Yeah, because I promised, once you act it, I promised it to a couple of people. Yes, and we'll be getting the revised thing back out to everybody. Like the signs guy. When you adopt an ordinance, would you send it to me?
Any other business?
I just had a question from our last meeting. What, did the board do anything on the gun permit place or the gun shop?
That is on the 12th. Usually the 12th. It has to be occupied for at least 15 days.
Is that your reluctance about the zoning of the notice period with the
Yes.
council meeting?
Yes.
Any other business?
Make a motion for adjournment.
Got a motion?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.